Welcome to our CyberWise Chats, where we talk about the challenges of raising and teaching digital kids. I'm Diana Graber, author of Raising Humans in a Digital World and founder of CyberWise and CyberCivics. Join every episode with Dr. Pamela Rutledge, who's the director of the Media Psychology Research Center. Our always lively conversations tackle topics like cyberbullying, screen time, TikTok, and everything in between. We've got some great guests and promise each chat will give you the tips, tricks, and confidence you need to help kids use technology safely and wisely. Well, welcome everyone to our CyberWise chat. I'm Diana Graber, author of Raising Humans in a Digital World, here as always with Dr. Pamela Rutledge, who is the director of the Media Psychology Research Center. For today's chat, we're going to be talking about how to keep your kids safe. Let the games begin. We're talking about and hopefully giving you some great tips on how you can keep your kids safe and safeguard them when they play video games. We're really excited about our two guests today. We're thrilled to welcome Candela Montero, who is the Senior Director of Ecosystem Integrity at Epic Games, and Catherine Jensen, the VP of Global Consumer Experience at Sony Interactive Entertainment. They're both going to tell you about themselves in just a moment, but just to set the stage here, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the Pew research that came out just, I guess, last month in May. And we already knew that a lot of kids play video games. 85% of US teens, they say they play video games. 4 in 10 do so daily. Not surprisingly, nearly all boys report playing games, something like 97%. So ton of kids are gaming, and these kids are experiencing positives and negatives, just like they do in all of things that they do on the internet. On the negative side, they say that it can lead to harassment and sleep loss. On the positive side, it can increase problem-solving skills and making new friends. Of course, as parents and teachers, we really want to emphasize the positive, and there's so many ways to do this. And we get asked all the time, like, how do you keep your kids safe on games? And there's a million ways to do this. And we're so pleased to have our guests here because they provide you with so many tools, and we really want you to know where to find these tools and how to use them well. So before we talk about that, Pam, I just want you to give us a couple words about development here, because, when we say kids, that's a really painting it with a really very broad brush. Kids are different. They're different ages. They're different temperaments. They're different developmental stages, and how to protect them really depends on your kid and their age and stage. Don't you agree?
Well, absolutely. And I'm not going to go into it because I don't want to take a minute from our guests who are going to actually give you some useful information. But I want you to know that Diana's going to be sending out a handout, Ages and Stages, because there's a huge difference in the cognitive ability and the ability to emotionally regulate between an 8-year-old and an 18-year-old. There's a world of difference just in what they can be doing and the kind of controls that a parent can positively put on. They're really training wheels. They're guardrails. They aren't a one and done. It's a continual conversation. But the other thing I wanted to point out is that the games are really designed to give your players the best experience possible. They aren't trying to make it a scary or a dangerous place. The real problem comes from the other players, the user-generated content, harassment, and parental controls are one way of you being able to control within an environment for some of those conditions. So I think they've been very proactive in trying to give you controls to not just make the game better, but to provide safety against what might happen with other players. So let me just be quiet and turn this over to you and let you introduce yourselves. Candela, why don't you start?
Hi, thank you so much. I'm Candela Montero. I lead the Ecosystem Integrity team here at Epic Games. Epic makes games like Fortnite, Fall Guys, and Rocket League. We also develop the Unreal Engine, which is a 3D tool used by video game companies to build their own games. And the Ecosystem Integrity team is really focused on making all of Epic's games and experiences welcoming and safe and fun for all players, regardless of their age. So that's what we'll be talking about today. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
And Catherine, can you give us a few words before we get started?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. So I'm Catherine Jensen, and I'm Vice President of our Global Consumer Experience at Sony Interactive, home of the PlayStation. And within my responsibilities are online safety, which is the player-to-player engagement online on the PlayStation Network. We focus a lot on both our tools, such as parental controls, so you can control your experience. Just like Candela said, regardless of age, you have personal preferences, and we want to make sure you have controls to set those. But at the same time, we will work with technology to shield our players, as well as enforce our standards. So we want to create a rich, playful environment for everyone.
Great. So I know, most people that are watching or listening, you probably have kids who play these games or use PlayStation. But for those of you that don't or are curious what these two products are, let's talk about that first. Candela, I'll start with you. I have to say, a year ago, I taught sixth grade cyber civics at a school near here. And I'd have to give the kids the first 5 minutes of the class to talk about their Fortnite games. That was like all they talked about. Honestly, like I'm not making this up. That was always every day. That was the conversation. Let them get that out of their systems and then we could do our lessons. So I know a lot about Battle Royale and what happened last year with Fortnite, but can you tell us what's new in 2024?
Yeah, I think, most people do, when they think of Fortnite, they do think of Battle Royale, which is our last person standing game. But today, there are actually thousands of games in Fortnite. So I think an easy way to think about it is to think of Fortnite as a hub that's full of a variety of games and experiences where players can kind of come together, they can hang out, they can find a game they want to play, have fun with their friends and their family. And some of these games are made by Epic, like Lego Fortnite or Rocket Racing, or Fortnite Festival, Battle Royale. But some of the games are made by all of our other Fortnite players. The really great thing about Fortnite today is that each of those games now has an individual age rating. So when you come into Fortnite, you'll see trusted and familiar ratings from the ESRB that range from everyone to a maximum teen rating. And using Fortnite's parental controls, you can set age rating restrictions to limit the type of content that your children can access if you don't want them to see content within Fortnite that is above a particular age rating.
Great.
What I love about that is that it's an opportunity for kids not just to play other people's games, but to make their own games. Because I know a lot of middle schoolers who go to camp in the summer to learn how to program their own Fortnite games. So it's a real opportunity for learning coding, and I'm sure there are similar opportunities on PlayStation. Catherine, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on? PlayStation changes so often, and I have to confess that my son-in-law was watching his social media to find out where he could purchase when you released the last iteration of PlayStation. So tell us what's going on over there.
Sure, thanks. And we have the PlayStation 5 as our latest console. We did have some challenges with respect to supply and demand, but it's available everywhere now. Our PlayStation console also has a store with a number of games, different age ratings, including Fortnite, which is free to play, but you may want some in-game advantages, let's say. But we have a number of family-friendly titles within the PlayStation Store, including Astrobot. Astrobot is a great way for families to play together, as well as Gran Turismo, which is a racing game. But we have a full lineup of family-friendly titles in our store.
Kind of makes you want to try playing.
I know. Well, at Christmas, it's a great equalizer. Those kinds of racing games where people of all ages, and nothing is funnier than watching kids make fun of you when you don't know how to play the game very well, because that's highly entertaining for them.
I love it when we can encourage parents to actually try these things, because it really changes their mindset about the possibilities of family engagement and having fun with your kids. And I don't know, so many possibilities there. But first, what I'd like to do is, I do so many parent presentations. I always get asked, how can I keep my kids safe when they play games? And it's like, that is such a huge, gigantic question that deserves like an hour answer. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to ask each of you, and maybe start with you, Candela. Like, if a parent asks you that, where do you tell them to go, and what do you tell them to do that they can remember?
Yeah, it is, as you say, a gigantic question. There's so much I think that consoles and games are doing in this space. And for us in particular, we want anyone that comes in to play any of our games to feel welcome and to feel safe so that they can really focus on having fun, which is why anybody comes to play to begin with. I think for us, everything starts with our community rules. They very explicitly state the type of behavior that is or isn't allowed in all of our games. And behavior like harassment, discrimination, or online bullying is never tolerated. Players under the age of 18 have more restrictive settings from the start, or more protective settings from the start. So for example, in Fortnite, when a player under 18 comes in, voice chat is automatically disabled. In addition to that, if a player is under the age of 13 or under their country's age of digital consent, when they go to create an Epic account to play any of our games, their account will be a cabined account. And cabined accounts are designed to create a safe and inclusive space for younger players to play our games. So players that are in a cabined account, they can play Fortnite and Rocket League and Fall Guys, but they won't be able to access features like voice chat or to make real money purchases until their parent or guardian provides permission for them to do so. And then once their parent actually goes through that account setup and provides consent, they can manage their child's social settings or purchasing setting using Epic's parental controls. I know this is a long answer, but I really want to take the opportunity for parents to kind of understand everything at their disposal. Our parental controls include over a dozen granular controls to manage things like voice chat. Voice chat in particular, we worked hard to go beyond the industry standard of just having voice chat be on or off, because you may really want to think about exactly who is it that you're comfortable with your child speaking to. So you can select between them being able to talk to everybody, just their friends and their teammates, just their friends only, or nobody. So it gives a little bit more granularity that you feel empowered to let them speak to who you feel comfortable with them speaking to. The parental controls also allow you to manage friend requests. So you can require that your parental control PIN is entered before friend requests are accepted or sent. You can require, again, that same parental PIN to be entered before a purchase is authorized. And you can sign up for playtime reports. And something that I think is really important to know is that yes, as Catherine said, Fortnite is free to play, but any purchases you make in the game are strictly for you to have fun. They're cosmetic, like the skins and outfits that you can wear, but there are no pay-to-win mechanics. In Fortnite, there's no loot boxes, so parents don't have to worry about that. So anyway, this is a lot of information. All of that information can be found on our Safety and Security Center, which is, Diana, what you mentioned at the top, and that can be accessed at safety.epicgames.com.
And we'll be sharing all that information with you, so you don't have to furiously try to write that down. So if you've registered for the webinar, you'll get a follow-up email with that information. And thank you, Candela. That was a great answer. If I could just one follow-up question, because I was curious. That's not really hard for a parent to do, right? Like, you make it pretty easy. And is it quick to set up those settings?
It can be very quick, yes. So you can, and this is something that you can find on the Epic Safety and Security Center. The great thing about parental controls is that if you never want to touch a controller because that's intimidating, you never have to. You can go to the Epic account portal. You sign in as your child's account. So your child will already have an Epic account. That's how they play our games. And you can sign in there, and there'll be a side menu where you can access those parental controls. They're they're laid out for you on one page, and they're very easy to select from. But if you need help understanding them further, or if you want to watch a video that shows you how to set them up, you can go to the Safety and Security Center and watch a 1-minute video that will show you how to set it up.
That's so helpful. Thank you. Awesome. All right, Catherine, I'm sure you guys have a whole set. I know so many people that use, isn't PlayStation like the #1 console right now?
It is, absolutely.
Yeah. So you must have an array of ways that parents can keep their kids safe.
We do, absolutely. And very similar to what Candela had talked about at the account creation, you can create a child account. It is age gated and rated. So we have both presets between child 7 to 12, as well as early teen, and then later teens. And each one of those at creation has different standards that can be more restrictive from a default perspective. But after you create your account, we have a family manager role where the parent can assume oversight for the activities that their child can play. That can also be managed via an app. So again, you don't always have to be on the console or using a controller. One of the big parental controls that I think is important, especially for summertime, as well as when you're in school. And if you're a parent, you want to control the playtime. You can have a setting that will allow them to play, for example, after school or for 2 hours after dinner, but you can really control the playtime. It's not necessarily turn it on and then turn it off. Spend limits, if you want to have a monthly spend limit, or you just want to be informed every time your child wants to make a purchase, you can say yes or no via the app. The other thing is that just like Candela said, it's all about communication and connection. We want to make sure that you as a parent are able to permit who your children are speaking with or speaking with at all. And that's also available in the controls. So a wide range of controls. We also have a video that's not only on our safety hub, which is available off of PlayStation.com, but also on our YouTube channel and on several other parental control or parent-friendly sites.
So are the platform level controls or the console level controls, do those then apply to each game, or are so you don't have to set them for each game? A parent doesn't have to figure out where,
Yeah. Yes. So our parental. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say our parental controls are persistent. So for games that are developed to play on the PlayStation or they're in the PlayStation Store, our controls are persistent. So what you set on the account will pull through to the games. Now, in-game, as Candela mentioned, those can have different controls depending on the developer. And as she mentioned, Epic has a wide range of control once you're inside Fortnite.
Yeah, I think we really advise parents to review both their console level parental controls and any additional parental controls that are offered by the game. Epic's parental controls apply to features specifically operated in Epic's games, so that's Fortnite, Rocket League, and Fall Guys, regardless of the platform that they're on. I think the really great thing, some of the work that consoles and games are doing, or at least Epic is doing with the consoles, is that in some cases, like with our voice and text chat, if a parent has parental controls set up in both the console and the game that address voice and text chat, our game will respect the most restrictive setting because we believe that that is most reflective of a parent's true intent. On PlayStation in particular, with the PS5, Catherine and the team have been really great in working with us when we rolled out ratings in Fortnite in November of last year. Now, if a player has a content rating ceiling set on the PlayStation 5, that limit is automatically carried into Fortnite so that a parent can feel confident that their rating limit is also respected in the game. But there's always nuances in each of the games that might be addressed more specifically in a game's parental controls versus a console. So we really advise that parents look at both.
You know what I love about all of these different controls is that they're each one makes an opportunity for a conversation to have with your kid.
Yeah.
Who you can talk to. Who do you want to talk to? Why do you want to talk to them? What will that be like? And it lets you introduce things like trash talking, which is a big part of, especially among boys, game culture, to talk about the psychological effects of that kind of thing so that they are a little bit smarter about their play and the parents can feel a little more confident about the settings that they're making.
Yeah, that was kind of a follow-up question I was going to ask too, Pam, along the same lines, because I was looking in the research and the kids themselves report that they don't like the harassment and things go on. And, as much as possible, we try to empower kids to be their own masters of their digital experiences, mostly because kids are smarter than we think, right? And number two, parents are so busy, right? So Do you ever find, I don't know if you can even answer this question, but are kids setting up their own settings, or do kids ever monitor their own experiences in a way that they would like to play? I hope that makes sense, but it just seems like especially a teenager would be able to do some of these things for themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
I think one thing that is a really a nuance of what we talked about before is if you are a child that it is in that 14 to 18 age range, so you are an older teen. I mentioned that when you come into the Fortnite ecosystem, you have more protective settings from the start. So your default settings are more protective. But if your parent doesn't elect to go in and set up parental controls, because maybe at that age they would prefer to have a conversation with their child about how to safely engage in a game versus directly supervising via parental controls, that player can go in and they have access to all the same settings and they can tailor them themselves. And actually, similarly, when a parent is setting a parental control, if you think about the chat settings, a parent is selecting what the maximum setting is for their child. So it could be that a parent says, I'm actually comfortable with my child chatting with their friends and their teammates. But that doesn't restrict the ability of the player then going in and saying, actually, I don't want to talk to anybody, or I only want to talk to my friends. So we're trying to create that balance of agency and empowerment for both sides, for both the parent and the player.
I love that. I think that's so important right now because, you know, kids like to have that agency, and if they don't get it, they're going to find go-arounds because they just do. And so I think having them have buy-in, designing their own experience makes such a big difference.
Yeah, and I wonder how many kids realize that is one way that they can set personal boundaries, that they don't have to just take all of the abuse. I think that's a very powerful thing that you're offering, both as a for parents, but also as a learning tool for kids to sort of take charge.
Yeah, and that if
Yeah, I think.
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that, again, like Candela said, we have personalization options that the teens can use, such as muting or blocking. So again, they can take control within their experience, above and beyond the parental controls that are set. So I think it is important for them to be able to make those choices and really to represent their own digital civility, if you will. And
Yes.
Candela talked about a code of conduct. And again, it's about the community and the experiences that they're able to create together. So we have a code of conduct, but we also have those personalization tools that are so important to the experience that you want to have as a player.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up. It kind of goes in line. I'm looking at the Q&A as you're speaking. And I want to go back to the trash talking because that's one of the things I've heard from kids directly. They don't like it and they want to know how they can control it. And the fact that you offer them that tool, I think is really huge. And really, it goes back to what you said in the beginning, Pam. It's not the tools that there's any problems with, it's the people, and I think it's incumbent upon us as teachers and parents to teach kids, what is appropriate language wherever you are, in the real world, in the online world. I know in cyber civics, we read community guidelines. We have a whole lesson on hate speech and how people feel when they're the target of it. And I think it really goes back to educating kids. It's the child, it's not the tool that we're having the issues with. And these guys are doing a lot of work, and I think it's incumbent on us as parents and teachers to meet the amount of work that they're doing to prepare kids to use these tools well.
Yeah, and I think kids don't underestimate how the physiological effect on themselves when they're trash talking. They may be just trying to do it to look tough, but there's negative implications physiologically when you're being mean and aggressive, because it has negative detrimental health effects over time. So it's an important thing to do. We've got another question coming in about how to enforce a code of conduct. So how is the enforcement handled in your respective environments? Well, Candela, will go to you just because Zoom is weird.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about is really important because as both Catherine and I have said, I think our priority really is for players to have fun. And no one has fun when they're having an encounter that they're not comfortable with. So it's really important that we root everything in our ecosystem in those community rules. What players can do to take action is they can always block or mute a player that's saying things that they're not comfortable with, but they can also report other players. And now if you report something that someone said in voice chat, it is accompanied by audio evidence so that our moderators can review that audio clip. They will hear both what you said and anyone else talking to you said so that they have context. And if they find that in that conversation, something was said that violated our community rules, then enforcement actions will be taken against the players who were not behaving appropriately. We think this is really critical so that we are not only setting expectations for what kind of behavior is acceptable within our games, but we also can hold players accountable when they're not doing that. And hopefully over time, that diminishes the amount of trash talking, as you say.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised, because I've talked to kids about this. Like, you would think kids don't use those tools, but when they know they're there, which a lot of them don't, but once you tell them about it, they love to be their own policeman.
Oh, yes.
They do. And they like to report. And now that you've made it so easy for them to do it, they can take those steps, but we have to tell them that they're there to take.
Yeah, I think that, again, that code of conduct is so important, right? You're creating a community. We first want you to personalize. There are some technology activities, like Candela said, that we're taking to shield you from ever even seeing certain content or different types of URLs that we don't allow to be shared in chat or on your community wall. But then if we are looking to enforce standards, we look for the player to report what was unwelcome. And while we will take the report, we'll also give them the option right then and there to mute or block that particular player. So we want to address it in the moment, as well as to review the evidence that gets captured when a player does report. We have a host of technology. I think, like Candela said, the amount of technology that we use in content moderation has just astronomically advanced. We have skilled human moderators that are reviewing these as well. But a lot of investment and advancement in how we're working to make sure our digital ecosystems are welcoming and fun. I mean, it's about play.
Yeah. And that kind of goes in line here with another question we got. Can a parent find out if their child is blocked or muted or reported?
So if a player within the Fortnite ecosystem, if a player has an enforcement action that is taken against them, let's say they have a temporary account ban, they will be notified. And if it's a temporary account ban, they won't be able to go in and play Fortnite. However, in the Epic safety and security site, there is a section of the site that is specifically about this. There is a sanctions and appeals section of the website that either players or parents can go in. And if there was action taken against the player, there will be some sort of report ID, or they can just simply log into their account. And they will see the sanctions that were taken against them, and it will explain why those happened. So they can always access that sort of information in the Epic Safety and Security Center.
That's great. Wow.
So anytime one player blocks another player, or reports another player, the blocking wouldn't show up, but the reporting should show up in your security center.
If they were blocked, it will say, like, it will show the sanctions that are on that account. Okay. Yeah. And it will show the amount of time. So if it's a temporary account ban, it will show when it ends as well.
So this is probably going to be a rhetorical question, but Catherine, I'm going to ask you, what are the biggest challenges you face in educating parents about all these things that you offer?
I think the big thing is again, it starts with a conversation. Yeah. Don't be intimidated, right? Again, we have so many great stories about connections, intergeneration connections, definitely friend to friend. It's about a conversation, and parents shouldn't be intimidated by the console or the controller. Take the opportunity. If you are setting up parental controls and you have questions, we actually have a parent-to-parent helpline where you can ask another parent, what how did they set it up? What type of questions did they ask? And really kind of demystify, while it's complex in the background, that's for us to deal with. For parents, you just need to have a conversation, go through the questions, talk with your child about what they are looking to play. And again, the site makes it very easy. But I think the hardest thing first is to have that conversation to make sure you're setting up the right level of account for your family, for your child. We have a range of social profiles that you can set up. It could be social and open, which is the widest or the least restrictive that we have, or it can be all the way down to where you can only play single player solo games and focused. So it's about that conversation. And maybe it's about graduation, where you start out very restrictive and you open up more permissions as you get more comfortable.
That's great. And I'll ask you the same question, Candela. Like, what is your challenge in getting this information to families?
Yeah, and Catherine, just first and foremost, that parent-to-parent helpline sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I think the hardest thing is that it can be tough for parents to stay on top of all of the devices, the apps, and the games that their children might either be accessing or might want to play. Which is why we were excited to come and talk to you all today, because we wanted to raise awareness of all of the tools and settings that both parents and players have at their disposal to really curate the digital experience that's right for their family. It can be intimidating, as Catherine mentioned. And so we really do want to also, as Catherine said, demystify what, all of the tools that you can utilize. I do think a really great place to start, I know I've mentioned it a lot of times, but a really great place to start is going to safety at epicgames.com and going to that parental controls page. Because something that may seem like it will be a difficult thing to do, you can probably do in under 5 minutes, and you will walk away feeling very confident that you have control and supervision over what your family is accessing within Fortnite. I think in particular, ratings is a really big part of that. For us, that's the most recent parental control and the most recent feature that we launched at the end of last year. In addition to the interactions that we've been talking about, I think content can be intimidating. And knowing that you can log into Fortnite and now have the ability to, at a glance, be able to see the rating that you already recognize and that you already trust there on the screen in order to make a decision either as a parent about what your child can access, or even as a player, you'll know at a glance the type of game that you're going to go into based on the rating and the content descriptors. That's really powerful. So all of that is in our safety and security center. You can read through that, but more importantly, you can watch the video in under a minute and you can go in and set them up pretty quickly.
That's wonderful information. Thank you so much for that right there. So both of you, thank you. There's a question that came in that, if it's okay, I have to answer it. Because it so speaks to me. Somebody wrote, curious at what age these panelists would let their children play Fortnite. Thinking about the story myth that Steve Jobs did not let his kids have an iPhone because he knew it was dangerous. So I did not allow my own children to play video games when they were young. I was one of those parents. My kids went to Waldorf school, no tech, all of that. When my daughter became a teenager, she tutored a younger girl. And during their tutoring sessions, the younger girl taught my daughter how to play Fortnite. My daughter fell in love with it. So she came home and taught me how to play it. And I fell in love with it. And so it became a really great bonding experience. But it really opened my eyes to the fact, like, maybe I was being too draconian about that there are a lot of benefits to these games. It's really a fun way to bond with your kids. There's like skill in it. I mean, it's hard. You have to be good at these things. So I don't know. I'm sure you all have your own experiences, but I just wanted to share that.
I have a 6-year-old boy and a 3-year-old daughter. So I'm right at that age where my son is starting to become super interested in video games, is hearing about them a ton at school. Apparently they play Fortnite at recess on the playground with no devices. They're just running around playing Fortnite. And my daughter does anything that her brother does. I would I would feel very comfortable with my kids going into Fortnite, and I would opt at this age to set pretty restrictive parental controls. So at this point, I would elect for them not to be able to chat with anybody, because at this age, I think it's important for us to play as a family and to experience that as a family. There, as I mentioned, there are games that are appropriate for any age now in Fortnite. It's not just Battle Royale. So we elect to play Lego Fortnite. Lego Fortnite is a new game that we launched in December. You might think it sounds like, well, it's Battle Royale with minifigures, but it's not at all. It's a survival crafting game that allows you to really explore what you can build with digital Legos in the same way that you might on your living room floor. And you have two modes within Lego Fortnite. Survival mode, where there are challenges like you have to harvest your own food, gather wood to stay warm. There might be wolves that try to attack you at night. And it can be pretty exciting to get through those challenges. But also, if you don't want to deal with any of that and you don't want to worry about surviving, there's also another mode that allows you simply to kind of unlock your imagination and build all sorts of really cool structures and vehicles, villages, that where you don't have to worry about any survival elements at all. It's just a digital playground with digital Legos. And my kids have a lot of fun in both. We also, as a family, really enjoy rocket racing. Rocket racing is rated E for everyone. You can go in and race in these really fantastical tracks. And that's appropriate for their age. Both of these, I think, are appropriate for their age. I wouldn't, at this age, I think at this age, I would pay close attention to the ratings of the games that they might want to access. And the great thing I think about the parental controls is that you don't just have the ability to set a ceiling. So to say, I don't want them to access anything above an E10 plus, for example. You also have the ability to unlock individual games. For example, I know that even though Battle Royale is rated teen, there's no blood or gore in Battle Royale. So it's really fantastical and cartoon violence, and there's music and there's emotes and vehicles. So I might be comfortable with my child accessing Battle Royale, but I might not want them to access every other teen game. So there's a lot of specificity and granularity built into the ratings control so that parents can make decisions.
Yeah, and she mentioned a lot about ratings, and you will be getting that information from us again as a follow-up. The ESRB offers terrific ratings on all of these things, so we'll give you information on where you can find that. But Pam and Catherine, I wanted to give you guys a chance to, if you have an experience with your own children or regarding games.
Well, you know, I have a gamer I have a daughter who's been playing video games since she was 8, and she is a Minecraft master, and she can build you anything you want. I've never seen her, you know, she sometimes worries about the zombies, but for the most part, she's just making these fantastical creations, you know, showing them off to us. You know, look, I made a Ferris wheel. Look, I made a playground. I mean, it's quite remarkable the amount of creativity and the hand-eye coordination that these kids have, sort of manipulating the controllers and the keyboards to get this done is remarkable. So, you know, do I oversee? Yes. Do we have conversations about what's appropriate and not appropriate to disclose to other people or to share, or where to go, what to do if you have problems? We have all of those conversations, but, you know, my observation is that for the most part, it's a very positive and creative experience. So I do not restrict gameplay other than, you know, sleep things.
Catherine, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. So first off, I think Minecraft is an excellent game to inspire curiosity and to take risks, as is Fortnite. And it is about that kind of choice or flexibility that you want to have in the way that your child or teen is playing. My kids are older. My oldest one was in the Navy, and that was a way that he kept in touch with his younger brother. So they used a voice chat and other ways that they were able to stay connected. So I just think that there's such powerful engagement and connection that we need to find a way to foster it in a positive environment. And that starts with being aware of what your choices are that you can make for yourself, for your family, and to encourage, again, that dialogue.
That's such a great example, Catherine, because it's really looking at the game as a social vehicle rather than gameplay. And, I ran into a woman standing in line at a Starbucks who was traveling and had a young son. And so she would meet him in one of the wizard games so that they could spend time together, because when kids are playing, they talk to you more. And so it was a wonderful way of her staying connected with him. And she was adamantly opposed to it until she had that experience. So I think if other parents could realize that it becomes a platform for connection, independent of whatever's going on in the game, that would make a big difference into people's comfort level.
Yeah, and I think to remember that for a lot of kids, this is their social networking. This is where they meet their friends after school, because the world is different. They don't go outside and play as much as they can, largely because of where some kids live. They don't live in places where there's places to go meet. Malls are going away, all that. So it's their social networking. And then the other thing
I'm not sure that's a healthier environment.
Yeah.
Given the choice, games, malls.
Yeah. The other thing we learned during COVID is so many kids play games because it was a way for them to relax and get away from the stresses that were around them in real life. So there's a lot of mental health benefits in that respect. So just want to point that out, because I think, especially in the environment we're living in right now, there's so much fear around what kids do online, and just to remind parents to relax. Like, there's a lot of really cool benefits. And that's coming from me, who came from the whole other end of the spectrum. So important to remember.
Okay, we've got a Epic Games Nintendo Switch. Can you make it so that people can't chat with anyone while they're playing on the Switch?
Yes, you can. So if you go into the parental controls, you'll see an option to choose settings for voice and text chat. If you select nobody, they will not be able to chat with anybody within Fortnite. Now, I think, again, what's important is it could be that that if a parent has just set up parental controls in Fortnite and hasn't set them up on the Switch, once they exit Fortnite, they might still be able to chat through the console chat function. I'm not as familiar with Nintendo's chat function, but if you're within the game and you've selected nobody on Epic's parental controls, they should not be able to chat with anybody.
Right. Thank you for answering that. I wanted to just say one thing, because we're getting really close to the end of our time, and I know that we're going to send out a lot of follow-up materials, but for people who are only listening to this, Catherine, I'll start with you. Where would you send them if they needed support from your company?
Awesome. So I think first off, as I mentioned, PlayStation.com, right on the top of our header, there's a section for support and safety. So we have a wealth of information located on our own site. But we also partner with the ESRB, which is the ratings board for our software. And they have a wonderful site that outlines the parental controls and the tools available for every console. And I think that it's just a really rich site for information to be more informed and to feel comfortable without having to even get on the console.
Great. And Candela, where is the one place you would send parents to look for support?
I am a broken record, but I'm very proud of this website. So please go to safety.epicgames.com. That's our safety and security center. You will find a lot of information there.
Great. And usually Pam and I try to wrap up with like takeaways, and I just have one today because it's something that I think every parent could do, and it's so easy. But when your child goes to sign up to use any of this stuff, these community guidelines are really interesting to read. They're not as boring as privacy policy in terms of use. They're interesting, and they tell you what it means to be part of a community, which is a civic lesson for a child, right? Whether they're in a real world community or online community. So my recommendation to parents would be, download those community guidelines, read them together and talk about them, and to ask your children, what kind of community do you want to help create in these ecosystems, and have them be a proactive member rather than somebody that's being the target of something. So that would be my 2 cents. Pam?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of unknowns here, and a lot of parents feel very intimidated by, the skill with which their kids play and the familiarity these kids have with games. Although now about 75% of parents play video games with their children. So our gamers have grown up and they're having babies. But I would say approach this with curiosity rather than judgment. It's so easy to just go, that looks stupid. And then you're just shutting a kid down. So get the kids to share their love of these games without any shame so that you can sort of experience it with them.
And Candela and Catherine, I want to thank you both so much for taking the time today. We are going to share this far and wide because it's really important information for parents. But really, thank you for the work that you do in making your platform
sure.
safe and fun. It's so important. And I think it will be surprising to a lot of parents, the work you have put into this and what they have available at their fingertips. So hopefully we'll make those fingertips find your work. So that will be our goal in the next couple of weeks. But thank you again for your time. And thank you, as always, Pam, for your time as well. So
Thanks for the opportunity. This was really fun. Thanks a ton.
all right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. We'll see you next time. Hey, parents. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to learn more, please visit our website just for you at www.cyberwise.org. But more importantly, if your kids are not already receiving digital literacy lessons in school, then you're definitely going to want to visit our other website, www.cybercivics.com, to learn more about our in-school curriculum called CyberCivics. And please tell your children's schools about it because every student deserves to be prepared to thrive in a digital world.